Now, in a 10-minute video, I can't make you an expert in mindset interviewing, but I can make you pretty dangerous. And I can absolutely promise to make the next interview you conduct more effective than the last. Now, chances are, you're watching this video in advance of a training class one of my colleagues will be conducting in your company. Or you could just be curious, trying to think a little outside the box on your own. Now, whatever the case, I hope to get you thinking differently about one of the most important skills an executive can possess. That's interviewing skills. The mindset interviewing technique is meant to fix the problem most every company faces, and that's hiring and being forced to either live with or deal with what we call qualified misfits. Now, what's a qualified misfit? A qualified misfit is someone that you hired or promoted that had all the right knowledge, all the right skills, and all the right personal attributes. They met all your qualifications, only for you to realize after the fact that they didn't fit in after all. They were a misfit. They were a qualified misfit. Kevin Kelly is the CEO of Heidrick & Struggles, one of the top international search firms. Now, I've never met Kevin, but I really like his candor. In a Financial Times article published a few years back, Kevin shared the results of an internal study into 20,000 Heidrick searches. He was quoted as saying this: "We found that 40% of executives hired at the senior level are pushed out, fail, or quit within 18 months. It's expensive in terms of lost revenue. It's expensive in terms of the individual's hiring. It's damaging to morale." Now, we agree with Kevin. This is still a problem. And I can tell you, Heidrick doesn't present unqualified people. It sounds like to me that 40% of their placements are qualified misfits. We talk to senior executives all the time, and they insist that failed executive hires are still a huge problem, costing their companies time, money, and lost opportunity. Now, mindset interviews are going to require you to think differently. If you're an experienced interviewer, I'm going to ask you to rethink the interviewing techniques you've grown comfortable with over time. Let's start by opening your mind a little. So if you buy stocks or mutual funds, you're probably familiar with this statement. It goes something like this: past performance is not a reliable predictor of future results. Now, this is a disclaimer that accompanies most solicitations for investments, and it makes total sense, doesn't it? I mean, just because a stock was up 20% last year doesn't mean it's going to be up 20% every year. Unfortunately, most employers don't apply the same sound investment advice when acquiring senior executives. In fact, they apply it in reverse. They essentially buy the stock, or the executive, at a premium, assuming the 20% returns are going to just keep on coming. Now, if that's the way you've been operating, we've got to change that. Whether you hire someone from outside your company or promote someone from within, you're making an investment in human capital. You're paying now for someone to do something for you in the future. At best, it's an investment. At worst, man, it's a gamble, a roll of the dice. If you've ever had the pleasure of sitting through a formal interview training, you've probably been exposed to the behavioral interviewing technique. Now, the underlying premise of the behavioral interviewing technique is this. It suggests that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior under similar circumstances. Now, let me share one of our strong beliefs. We believe that there are many, many more candidates practiced at answering questions inside of a behavioral interview than there are interviewers practiced at asking the behavioral questions. Now, here's a dirty little secret. Each question in a behavioral interview contains a hint of what attribute you're actually looking for. Do a Google search and you'll find tens of millions of documents on the web on how to best answer questions in a behavioral interview. I'm not making this up. Listen, behavioral interviewing has its place and is better than having no structure at all. But folks, there is a better way. Behavioral interviewing is about to turn 40. That's right. The most common, admired, and embraced form of interviewing was introduced nearly 40 years ago. Now I'm about to turn 50. Let's keep that between us though, okay? I've been in business going on 30 years. I've seen the booms and the busts. I've seen the internet change all of our lives. I've seen what used to take place on a mainframe move to an app on a smartphone. And through all this, the best we can do is, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior under similar circumstances? I don't think so. So what's so different about a mindset interview? To start with, the objective of a mindset interview is to identify thought patterns. When you put thoughts together, they create memories, expectations, and preconceptions. And these thoughts are what influence both perception and behavior in the workplace. Memories, expectations, and preconceptions are what we call thought clusters. And thought clusters are nothing more than multiple thoughts coming to mind around the same time. We don't have just one memory. One memory leads to another, and then another, and then another. Memories are thoughts, and they come in bunches. They flood our consciousness. They come in clusters. So here's an example. When I remember my grandmother, I remember how hard she worked. She worked in retail selling women's clothing. I remember the Sunday pot-roasted dinners she cooked and how much of a sports fan she was. Man, she loved the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I remember how proud she was of her adopted home state, Texas. So why is this important? When I think of the Pittsburgh Pirates, I think of my grandmother. When I think of pot roast, I think of my grandmother. Employees have memories of work situations, and these memories come in clusters just like the memories I have of my grandmother. One cue like the pot roast can trigger a vivid memory of my grandmother, whereas a simple cue like consultant might trigger in your employees a vivid memory of painful change. The mindset interview technique we're going to share is designed to unearth these memories. And these memories will become the core of the expectations and preconceptions I want you to start listening for. Memories lead to expectations. We remember things, and over time these things begin to represent our view of reality. They become our reality. And we expect things in the future to conform to our worldview, our expectations for the future. For the longest time, I thought all grandmothers worked. I thought they all cooked Sunday roast and then screamed at the umpires on TV. I thought the Pittsburgh Pirates were always going to be good. So why do you care? Mindset interviews, well, they're designed to reveal expectations in the workplace, just like I had when I visited my grandmother. I want you to know what to listen for. So what happens next? Prospective employees take their memories, they convert them into these expectations I just referred to, and then they develop a plan of attack, a game plan for what life and work throws at them. These are their preconceptions. When I went to my grandmother's, I always skipped a meal. I came ready to eat. I brought the sports page so I could talk about the game, and I wore my Pirates ball cap. These were my preconceptions, my rules of thumb. Well, candidates are the same way, and these candidates are going to share their preconceptions with you all the time. You just need to know what to listen for. One final point on thought patterns. Employees have a habit of thinking a certain way. These are their thought patterns. Now, these habits are pretty important because they allow your employees to think fast and to think on their feet. Society admires and companies covet people that are quick on their feet, that have good instincts, and that can make really effective snap judgments. Thinking patterns. Well, they enable these qualities, these attributes we're all after. People develop habits of thinking a certain way when those ways of thinking appear or they seem to work well. And they keep going back to them until they realize, often painfully so, that they don't work anymore. In other words, people are typically closed-minded until they have to become more open-minded. Now, like most little boys, I thought my grandmother would be, well, always around. And I thought the Pirates would keep winning. My memories are still strong, but my expectations have changed. So too have my preconceptions. Now, if you're in the talent development business, I think you're in the memory, expectation, and the preconception business. Now, why is that? It's because every skill and every piece of knowledge your employees possess, they're bathed in memories. They're wrapped in these expectations. And they're realized as preconceptions. The key to mindset interviewing is listening, not questioning. It's what you hear, not what you ask. What I need you to hear are the thought patterns. Now, to get started, there's only one question I need you to master. And it's not even a question. It's more of a prompt or a discussion starter. Here it is. I'd like to get your advice on something we're dealing with here. That's it. You can use different words to prompt this discussion. You can absolutely develop your own style. But I really want you to develop an appreciation for these particular words first. Advice. It's a really important word. Advice is defined as the guidance or recommendations regarding prudent future action, typically given by someone regarded as knowledgeable. Now, there are three words in this definition that makes the word advice so important to us. They're guidance, recommendations, and future action. The guidance and the recommendations the candidate offers will absolutely bring to life their skills and their experience. And keep in mind, unlike behavioral interviews that, well, they delve into a candidate's past, mindset interviews forces a discussion about their future action, the actions you're going to live with. When you think of how the word advice is defined, focus on these two words, future action. Future action is such an important phrase because you're hiring future action, aren't you? You're taking a risk. You're placing a bet. Gambling on someone's potential for what? Future action. You're not hiring what someone did, although you're paying for what they did, but that's a topic for another day. As the candidate is giving their advice, you're going to hear their memories, their expectations, and their preconceptions. And you'll be able to start seeing their thought patterns really come to life. Most people don't think out loud, but trust me, this approach forces them to do just that. Now, here's a really key point. Executive hires fail because they can't agree on what prudent future action really is. They can't agree with either their boss or the board, their peers or their subordinates. Sometimes they can't agree with any of them. They fail to achieve what we call a meeting of the minds. One side or the other decides that they can't work with the other. Then the exit visas, well, they're imminent. So here's a simple technique that can get you started conducting effective mindset interviews. First, don't focus on the competency. Focus on something you'll be evaluating the person on. We refer to this as the opportunity. 2, remember, ask for their advice on the opportunity. 3, listen. Listen for the memories, the expectations, and the preconceptions. Now, these are what you're going to capture in your notes. This is the candidate thinking out loud. And 4th, if the candidate asks for more information on the opportunity, don't offer detail. Respond with, "Sure, what can I tell you?" Answer only the questions they ask. Now let me explain. The questions they ask are a valuable form of thinking and gives tremendous insight into the candidate's memories, their expectations, and their preconceptions. You get to see their wheels turning as they're thinking out loud. Now, when you ask a behavioral interview question, you're inferring to the candidate what attributes you covet the most. In a mindset interview, the candidate tells you what attributes they think are most important for the opportunity. You don't share the answers to the test up front. Executive hiring requires a meeting of the minds between the candidate, their peer group, their superiors, and their teams. That's what fit is all about. The candidate's memories, expectations, and preconceptions influence what they think of as prudent future actions. This is their advice. Now, this is an easy way to see things now that typically become a problem later, once they're already hired. Okay, now it's really hard to fit some of what we offer in a 2-hour training class into a 10-minute video, but I gave it a go. And I hope you found it thought-provoking. Now, you disciples of behavioral interviewing, save the scathing rebuttals. We're not against behavioral interviewing. We're just really for mindset interviewing. Here's some thoughts to leave you with. The key to interviewing is listening, not questioning. In fact, you don't question. You prompt someone to think out loud. Past behavior is proven to not be a reliable predictor of future behavior, but current thinking, it sure can be. Employees put thoughts together into memories, expectations, and preconceptions, and these thought patterns are the key to future behavior. Thought patterns influence how a candidate will react in your unique working environment. And it's that reaction that determines whether the candidate, well, if they're going to be a good fit or one more qualified misfit.